grade student. And of course, you know, passing the state test, the MSP, it's important. And she did not think that she could do that. And so last year we worked really hard about what it means to be a learner and the power of rereading and that you can do it. And she passed. She sees me every day, tells me, Mrs. Goebel, I'm a learner. I'm a learner. And I'm like, yes, you are. You are a learner. So she's the first one that comes to my mind just because it's fresh and it's so fun to see her every day. And she is so proud of herself. She's a learner.
I keep in touch with several of those former students, and and it's very exciting to see that several of them are still making video, still making movies, and they're still interested in making movies.
You know, the kind of the drawback with teaching is that a lot of these kids will go, you know, many years before you see them, and then you see them, and then they tell you what the impact was. A couple of years ago, I had a student that I'd had in 5th grade, and he was a junior or senior at that point. And I ran into him in the store, and he came over and said hello to me, and I recognized him, but I couldn't place him. And he had said, you know, he told me his name, and I went, oh, okay, I remember now. And he had told me that he was a student who we were looking at retaining because he just was not performing very well. And I always thought that he had it in him to do it, to be successful in school. When we were deciding whether or not to retain him, he came to a meeting and he said, I'm going to get serious. I'm going to do this. And so we held off on making a decision to see if he actually would. And he turned his grades around and started to become very successful. And he was telling me that for him, that was probably the most important point in his education, because I really put his feet to the fire and made him accountable for his work and for being a student, for learning how to learn. And that to me was huge. So, you know, when you get to run into those kids every now and again and they tell you that, it's really great.
I remember a student who was somewhat disruptive, and they didn't get along with people, not only in my class, but people in general. And I found a way to get this person to start doing work in my class and helping with things other than class. They started doing little chores around the classroom to help out, and I saw a turnaround in the way they behaved and the way they dealt with people. And because of technology today, I'm able to still keep tabs on what these people are doing. And this particular person's a very successful businesswoman in Florida. And so, you know, there are those kind of moments spread throughout my work.
I've been teaching long enough now that I'm less likely to feel like I'm turning on lights for specific kids, but I've been around students who have lit up. But to get a ceramic student, to have someone come through and go, you know what I want to do when I leave high school? I want to be a potter, or I want to be a sculptor, or I want to work with this material. That's unusual, and yeah, and of course that has happened. And at the same time, I would not take credit for it. I would go, this kid would have done this in any other classroom. I just happened to be there. So I was there to have this, to create an experience where they went, this is what I was supposed to do.
I've been invited to be an extra in the final scene of a movie that 2 of my former students have made. It's taking place in Everett, in the movie theater there, and we're supposed to dress formally like we're going to a concert, and I'm going to be an extra in the audience of a movie that they've written and directed and filmed. That's like so cool. So I have another student who's basically living my former life. He left, college, and he moved to Hollywood, and he, scrambled for a job. He parked cars for a while, and managed to get into a starting position in a small production studio, which is exactly what happened to me. And I've already told him that he needs to mention me when he picks up his Academy Award.
When one of our students was in the emergency room and a Mexican man came in, he couldn't really communicate, and so they said, "Does anybody here speak Spanish?" So they bring her in from the waiting room into the emergency room, and she translates, "Who are you? Where are you from?" And so things like that is when they tell me where they use the language, because it makes what I do here important.
Two of my students who are juniors at USC right now came up to visit us last summer, and they said that all of their friends at USC were like, "Why are you going to see teachers? That's so weird." And they said, "Are you kidding me? Miss Kilmer is who got me into USC." So that's always amazing to hear. I mean, it's not true, but it's amazing to think that that's how they think about it.
A lot of my students write to me and tell me how they like the class, or how they like the enthusiasm, or how they like the difference, in the delivery. But I get that after they're like 20 or 21, and I often say, "You'll thank me for this later. You may not thank me now, but you'll thank me later."
So right now, I actually can think of a specific student, and it just makes me really happy to see these kids, and then their whole attitude changes. Once they start having that success again, their whole attitude changes, and they're like, "Oh, maybe I do like math." And that phrase right there, if I can change a student from hating math and dreading that period of the day to even just, maybe I do like math, that's pretty powerful for me. That's pretty exciting.
Today, a young man came in after school today and took a test. He flunked the test. But what I said to him was that he was the only kid that was in there taking the test after school. Out of the 170 plus kids that I have, he was the only one who came back to take a test. So his effort, I said, that's immeasurable. It's not just the 50 or 100% on the test for reading, it's his effort. He came in after school, he took the test. Although he flunked the test, he got high praise from me. And in my heart, I told him I will remember that his effort was better than taking the test, passing it, better than taking the test and flunking it. It was just a great moment.
As a teacher, I find that I have a moment every day, and probably several moments, when I look at a student and I see them, their brains working and they're processing and they figured something out. The light bulb has lit up finally, and it's heartwarming to see that because I know they're trying so hard. And that happens, as I said, every day. But what really makes me enjoy my profession and know that I want to do it for the rest of my life is when I have students come back to visit me, my prior students, and they come back and they say, "Miss Coleman, remember when you taught me factors? Well, now I'm in algebra and I can do algebraic problems," and they're so excited. Or they just come by to say hello, and you know that you've touched the life of a child.
I think there's a lot of throwaway moments where we say things in an offhand way, or we say things just, kids don't do well on a test and you say something offhand and they take it and they use it. And so there is that whole how we have to be careful because we're in that position. There's other times, especially in robotics, one of the nice things is that the kids, it's project-based and competition-based, and so the kids are constantly working on things. And it's nice when you see a group that's been struggling, or you see a kid that's been struggling, and then there is that moment where they get it, and suddenly the robot does something that it couldn't do before, or suddenly they can make the robot do something that they couldn't do before. And so when they get that and they start doing it, it's really nice.
I think I'm pretty fortunate in that I've experienced quite a bit of kind of that light bulb coming on when kids participate in DECA and they go to these conferences. They spend 3 days dressed up in business attire. So the guys are wearing ties and the girls are dressed up, and it's not something the kids normally do, and they complain about at first, but by the time they spend 3 days at a conference, say down in Bellevue, they're loving it. for whatever reason, it's something that clicks in there, and you can see it when they want to continue to be dressed up and they want to continue to do these activities that we do in DECA. And that's probably the biggest, you see the most kind of impact in their life, or the biggest, flip of the switch, and they go, oh yeah, this is something I want to do. I want to be involved with business people.
It was a project we had been working on, and the student was struggling with it, so I had him come in after school to tutoring before it was due so that she could get some help. And as I worked with her one-on-one, and she finally got over the fact that she didn't understand all of it at once, but she could do a piece of it at a time. And she started to do one part of it and naturally moved on to the next, and then it was when she moved on to the third and final phase of the project, she kind of just stopped and she put everything down and she looked at me and she had these wide eyes and she was like, I get it, Miss Templin, I understand it. And that was a really great moment, because I realized that I didn't have to give her the information, I didn't have to give her the example of the project to do. I could just help guide her through the process, and that would help her understand it much better than my just giving her the answer.
Usually it's the coming back. It's when I get the kids who come back and they talk about something I said, or they bring up a story maybe I said, or we were talking in politics and they get it. It's a lot of times it's those moments that you go, whoa, I voted for the first time. That's my big thing with my seniors. I don't care, if you're a political scientist, I want you walking out of here engaged enough that you're gonna go vote. So when they come back and tell me they voted, that's my moment where I'm like, okay, all right, I feel pretty good about myself at this moment. You see it where the kid goes, oh, I get it. But to me, it's more the student who did that. I was just there to kind of guide. It wasn't necessarily me, it was just the kid, whatever it was, that moment, they got it. And then when you see that smile, you see that moment, kind of, you pat them on the back, you say, nice job. But honestly, then you're right on to someone else and you're working over here and your day goes on, and now you've seen 150 kids and,
That happened today, and that happens for any teacher on a daily basis. Today we were doing critiques, whole group critiques, and one young gentleman was brave enough to sit up in front of a class, hold his portrait up, which he felt was already all-encompassing of his skill and his ability. And as he held that picture up for everybody to see, and he received comments, and he received criticisms, and he received positive information about his piece as well, you could see the light bulb turning on in his mind. He was engaging in that thought process of, what can I do to make this more? The process of education gives moments like that on a by-minute basis.